This is Chapter 6, Burrs and Rotary Attachments for Handpieces out of your Pocket Guidebook. So I'm just going to go through this chapter a little bit. We're going to first talk about the burr itself. Its function is to be used in a high or low speed handpiece. Characteristics include the three parts. The head is the part of the burr that cuts, polishes, or finishes. This is available in a variety of different shapes and sizes, and we're going to go through some of them today. The neck is the part of the burr that tapers and connects the shank to the head, and then the shank is the part that's inserted into the handpiece, whether it be your slow speed or your high speed. So we have a nice illustration here to show the head, neck, and shank. For sterilization, burrs must be pre-cleaned, then placed in a sterilization pouch with an internal process indicator, sealed and then sterilized. So we always want to make sure that we're either sterilizing these or some offices have single-use burrs where you would just dispose of them in the sharps. So the first burr we'll talk about is the round burr. Its function is to remove caries from the tooth structure, to open the tooth for endodontic treatment, and to create retention in the cavity preparations. We can use these for many procedures on a tooth. So you notice the head of this burr is round and has some larger flutes. And this one in particular is the friction grip. Next, we have our pear-shaped burr. So you'll notice that the head of it looks like a pear. Its function is to open the tooth for restoration and to remove caries. Next, we have our inverted cone burr. Its function is also to remove caries and then also to establish retention in the tooth for the cavity preparation. Here we have our straight fissure burr, plain cut. Its function is to cut cavity preparation, form inner walls of cavity preparation, and create retention grooves in the walls of the cavity prep. Next, we have our tapered fissure burr. So you'll notice with the straight and the tapered, the straight is more cylinder where the tapered does taper off at the end of the head. Its function is to cut the cavity preparation to form angles in the walls and then to also place retention grooves in the walls of the cavity prep. Next, we have our straight. So very similar to our straight fissure, only here we have some cross cuts. Its function is to cut cavity preparation, form walls of cavity preparation, and to create retention grooves in the walls of the cavity prep. And then we also have our tapered fissure burr with the cross cuts again in the head to cut cavity preparation, form angles in the walls of the cavity preparation, and then also to create those retention grooves in the walls. Here we have our finishing burr. So you'll notice with our finishing burrs that the flutes in the head are closer together. So these are used to finish composite restoration, to finish a restoration by restoring the anatomy in the tooth. And then also we can use these to adjust occlusion in the filling material. Next, we're going to talk about our diamond burrs. This is our flat end taper. Its function is to reduce tooth for the crown prep or a crown prep when a square shoulder is needed. So the diamond have a range of grids. They are a lot stronger, so they can reduce a lot of tooth structure in a short amount of time here. So we're going to use these a lot when we're doing our crown preps and prepping that tooth to fit a crown. So this is our flat end taper. Next, we'll talk about our flat end cylinder. This is used to reduce a tooth for a crown preparation when a parallel wall and flat floors are needed. We have our diamond burr. This is used to reduce a tooth for a crown preparation for the subgingival margins, so below the gum line. Here we have our wheel, and its function is to reduce a tooth for a crown prep on the lingual aspect of the anterior teeth, so the front teeth, and to reduce bulk of the incisal edge. Next, we'll talk about our mandrels. So our mandrels are used with our disposable snap-on discs. So the mandrel's function is to attach discs for finishing and polishing inside or outside the oral cavity. So this piece here, the mandrel, is inserted into our handpiece, and then we have our discs that will go onto the mandrel. So we'll sterilize and keep the mandrel and then dispose of the disc. The characteristics, so we have our long shank illustrated here in picture 1. This is used for our slow speed handpiece. Then we have our short latch type shank. This is going to be used for our slow speed or contra angle. And then we also have the shorter friction grip shank. This is going to be used for our high speed handpiece. But at the head, they all do the same thing. They're just going to hold that disc. So we also have a different type of mandrel here. Same idea though. With this one, we're gonna screw on the disc versus snapping on. They have the same lengths though, our long shank, short, and then our friction grip. And then these are the discs that we're talking about here. So we have the screw on and then also the snap on. These are sandpaper discs and they're gonna come in a variety of grit, and they're used to contour restorations, to polish and restore material, and use extra fine grit. We also have our rubber points used for polishing. So these come in a variety of different types here. We have our friction grip and then our latch type for our contra angle. And these are just also used to polish restorations. We can use them with amalgam, composite, or gold. They come in different abrasives. So you would start with wherever the system starts, usually with the more coarse, and then you'll end at the finer grit. The last type of burr we'll talk about is our laboratory burr or our acrylic burr. So these are going to be a lot larger than the burrs that we would use in the oral cavity. And they're going to have a longer shank because they're going to go on that slow speed straight or nose cone. And these are going to be used to trim acrylic in the laboratory. So meaning on your dentures or your partials.